Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. For this month's Creativity Without Borders, our last month of Creativity Without Borders, we are using the press-on stamp set. So with your kit, you are also getting the Cinnamon Cider in color ribbon. You are getting a full pack of the gold shimmer enamel dots. I think that's what they're called. You are getting the in color DSP. You are getting, what else are you getting? You're getting a package of the foam adhesive strips, which I don't have out because I don't need them for this. And if you add on the stamp set, you are getting a round tin with 2 additional bonus designs. So it's fabulous. I feel like I'm missing something. And I'll probably discover that as I start going through my project. So this is the project that we are going to make right now. It's a hot chocolate packet and salted caramel hot chocolate or hot cocoa, a yum. And if you don't want to make it into a hot cocoa packet, you can skip the step where I adhere it on the side and punch the holes. You can just do it as an actual card. But I thought this was super cute, and it is so much easier than you probably think it's going to be. You just need the supplies that I have out here, plus a little bit of adhesive. I have got some Whisper White just to do my little bit of stamping and the sentiment. I've got some of the Cinnamon Cider cardstock, which you can't really see on here. I might flip these around this time so that the DSP is in the back, or we'll sponge the sides. But we're using the heart punches, and we'll punch a scalloped one out of this probably, and the solid one out of this. We've got the text DSP, and that's going to be for our little cup collar. And then we've got a side folding card base, which is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And then we have a piece of the in color DSP, which is 4 inches by 5.5. And we're going to cut this on a diagonal. But if you are making it as the card, just skip that step. And I wanted to show you, I did my nails specifically for the occasion. Look at that little cutie. Little coffee cup and some coffee beans. Not the greatest job, and my cuticles look like whatever. Anyways, I wanted you to see that because I don't know if you'll notice it as I get crafting. But that being said, let's get our craft on. This really is so simple once you get your head around what's going on. Now, I will tell you that I don't have the small hole punch, so I used, you can use this and get some bigger holes, but I used, which punch? I used this guy. And I don't remember how I got the top one, but we'll figure that out when we get there. So to start, we are going to move all this stuff out of the way, and we're going to prep our card base. It's funny, I move all this stuff in to show you, and then it's in my way like immediately. So you can decide where you want to mark this, but I like to go at the 2-inch mark and just put a little notch with my scoring blade. And then about, let's see, is that 3 inches? That is about 2 3/4. So let's go 2 3/4 of the way. We can actually just measure it there. And there we go. You can use a pencil if you would prefer. These are going to be hard to see, I know, but there is the top one. There is the side one. Sorry, it's hitting the top here. Okay, so we can take that out. And I found the easiest way to trim down the DSP to where I need it to be is to hold that little scrap there and then take off 1/4 of an inch. So we'll line, well, not 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so we'll line that up, straighten it out. And then I just like to eyeball it. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's all there is to it. Hopefully it worked the way I wanted it to. Not too bad. And if that little score line bothers you, you can just go in with the back side, like turn it over and score it the reverse side. You don't want to push too hard because that will give you a stronger line on the front. Anyways, I'm not too concerned with that. So that is all that we need our trimmer for. You can go ahead and adhere this down. I'm going to use Stampin' Seal. So there are 2 steps that we want to do before we go any further. Here's the little designs that I had drawn for what I wanted to do on my nails. So we are going to take the cinnamon cider ink and the press on stamp set, and I did hearts on this one because I knew that I was using the heart punch. You could also use the coffee beans. You do whatever you'd like. This is your card. So what I tried to do was I would close this every now and then to make sure that I had the hearts going kind of where I wanted them to. You don't have to go super low. You could cover the whole inside, but no one's going to see it. Not if you're doing it as the hot cocoa packet. So just turn your stamp so that you don't have the same direction for every single one of them. Do a couple where they go off the edge and looks cute, right? Now, I didn't like that harsh corner, so I used the trio punch just to soften that up. And we'll do our punching now for these little holes. So with this punch, you have to be careful because if you go too far, you're going to cut that part off. You can't, like anything you see in this area, you would actually be punching into. So I think what I did was I just went as high up as I could and punched. And then a little bit lower down, you can line up that one and just come down a little bit. If it's not perfect, it's not the end of the world. But if you have a small circle punch, that would work just as well. So now we can just put some tear and tape on here. And you don't want to put any adhesive there because we're putting our bow through there. Oh, I didn't punch through both sides of it. You need it to come all the way through. So this should be easy enough to line up. I find it's absolutely necessary to get that little dot out of there, otherwise you won't see where you're punching. Okay, so now we can take our trim. And we're going to loop it through front and back. Okay, so now we can do our stamping of the cup and the sentiment. So I have a piece of Whisper White somewhere, and I am going to stamp that little to-go cup and a cup of thanks. And this is just using cinnamon cider ink. This is a very tone-on-tone project. I'm going to stamp that one more time. And our mug, our cup. And we are going to fussy cut that. Do a little bit of coloring with Stampin' Blends, nothing too fancy. So I think I'm going to do, if it'll fit, might be a tight squeeze. Yeah, it won't fit on there. We will do the regular heart, the unscalloped heart on here. See, I can't use that side because the whole background is that. And then we will do this, but let's give it some punch this time. Pardon the pun. I totally did not mean to do that. So let's just take our Stampin' Blend and go around the outside so that it pops this time, because it really is getting lost on that background. So we'll just come in a little bit. That's probably way more than we actually need. If you don't want to color it, you could sponge it as well, but I think the coloring is easier because it's scalloped. Okay, so we'll give that a minute to dry, but I want to make sure that I've covered enough. I have. So now let's do our mug. And you noticed, I don't know why I keep calling it a mug. You probably noticed that I stamped it in cinnamon cider. You can use Stampin' Blends you can use regular ink with Stampin' Blends. You just can't spend too much time in the same area. Just realized I need to stamp this on here one time to get our text area. Okay, so that is all the stamping. Obviously, if you're making this as a card and not as the hot cocoa packet, you can stamp something on the inside. But I'm just going to cut this out. You could definitely do it without stamping it first, but this is just so much easier. There's no guesswork. You can cut right at the line. You can cut inside the line so that it overlaps a little bit, or no, it doesn't overlap. So what I'm going to do is just grab my dark cinnamon cider. Is that dark? No, that's light. Dark cinnamon cider on the lid, on the left and right. And that part I'm not going to bother shading. It's just too small. I did on my sample, but okay, so if you go outside the edges on this, it's not going to matter because we are fussy cutting it right to the edge. There's no whisper white border on this one. So just give that some shading, and remember, because I use Stampin' ink like a stamp pad, I can't keep going over that and over that and over that because it will make it bleed. So now I'm going to bring in a little bit of crumb cake, light, and just do some shading on the cup itself. Not actually doing any on the coffee collar because that's this piece. Use your color lifter, and again, try to stay away from the cinnamon cider ink. You don't want it running, but this helps to shade it a little bit so it looks a little more realistic. And then we can just glue this piece on. Let's do our fussy cutting first. So to do that, I took my Stampin' Write marker. You could definitely use one of the blends, but I just took my cinnamon cider Stampin' Write marker and went along the edges. And you can do this with any color. There we go. Not loving the blending on that, but I also don't want to smear my cinnamon cider. When you hear that sound, you're pressing too hard. And sometimes you want to press hard. Okay, so now we can take this, and I just drew a heart on there. So making this cup, as you can see, is the most time-consuming part of this project. The rest of it comes together like a breeze. Okay, so we are ready to assemble. So let's put our colored scalloped heart. Sorry, apparently I can't speak and look for something at the same time. I do find it's easier to do this part when there isn't a hot cocoa packet in there. It's much easier for this to stick to the entire surface. If you have the packet in there, it's kind of trying to wrap around the packet. You can pop this part up, but whenever it's DSP, unless I have cardstock behind it, I like to just put it straight down. Okay, so we're going to glue this little puppy down. Probably doesn't need to be this long. And I don't really want it to pop too far off of the card because this can still fit in an A2 sized envelope. So we'll put our cup a little bit further over to compensate for that. We can still go a little further even. Okay, and if you want to put that heart on there, you can just draw it. I think it looks cute both ways. And then the final step is to take our cinnamon cider blends and we are going to color these guys. You know that Stampin' Blends work on most embellishments. So I'm going to color a couple here, and it kind of turns it into a nice orangey, almost like an amber. You do need to give it a couple seconds to dry because I noticed I dropped one of mine before and the ink from the sheet got on my project. So let it sit for a few seconds. I'm going to put one at the end of this. It's like, no, you aren't. I want it right at the end of the tail of that S. And then we'll just put a couple randos. So that is all. I hope that you enjoyed that, and I hope that you will support us in our last month of Creativity Without Borders. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Deadline is next Friday. I don't remember what the date was. Tomorrow is the 11th, so 18th, I believe it is. December 18th at noon Central Time is the cutoff. All the details will be on the blog hop. You can see my projects. You can see Kelly's projects. And that's it. I thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye.